Digital Dissection, a nerd podcast, can at times contain adult language and themes. It is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Digital Dissection podcast, where we take a closer and possibly unnecessary look at our favorite properties, creators, and topics. We are your humble hosts, Joe and Mark, two pop culture nerds dedicated to telling entertainment history before it's forgotten too soon. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, and our blog for more information on the show. We also love to hear from you. Write us at digitaldissectionpodcast@gmail.com. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get to dissecting.
We are not going to be able to record today. Nope.
Nope. It's just me, this, and we're going to slide into Power of the Night anytime now.
Right?
Yep.
Power of the night.
Oh, it keeps on calling.
I'll wait.
I think we might better mute.
No.
Okay.
That's the opening. We've started. That was planned.
All right, I'll begin. Hello, fellow pop culture nerds, and welcome back to Digital Dissection, where we take a closer and possibly unnecessary look at our favorite properties, creators, and topics. Today, we're clearly in the seated position to talk about movies. Now, you may be thinking, you talk movies all the time. What makes this so special? Well, you mind your tongue if you ask the exact question that I typed out just in time for this recording. We aren't just gabbing about movies today. No. In honor of summer camps beginning officially in just a few weeks, we're going to be talking about Campy Movies. That's right, we're diving into some of our favorite campy horror flicks, which have to fall into a pretty specific criteria to qualify. Now, before we do that, however, we do have some special guests we'd like to reintroduce you to. Devotees of this program will remember that from Season 1, Episode 18, Ballad of the Verse, we featured these fine folks. They're a wife and husband team, one who's a classically trained musician and one who is not. They offer their opinions on film scores and are the hosts of Measuring the Score. We welcome back Chris and Leslie. How are we doing tonight?
Do we want to be honest, or we just want to,
We're good.
Yeah,
She's good. I'm tired. So.
Good.
And slightly warmer than we were hoped. You
Yes,
hoped it would be. But
unfortunately.
In the deep south, it's already hit the 90-degree mark.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
And then in this house, the upstairs AC is cursed. It was like, oh, you're doing a podcast tonight upstairs? Yeah, no, you're not. You're going downstairs tonight. So go upstairs and the temperature reads 88. Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Ooh,
Well,
yeah,
maybe-
that number is should be reserved for DeLoreans trying to go back in time and
Right?
someone's house.
We'll attach a GoFundMe to this episode that'll link directly to the AC fund for Chris and Leslie.
and probably a nice in the arms of the angels slideshow of the old air conditioner.
Oh man, do not mention that because I work at a TV station and I was the overnight master control guy. And about 2 or 3 in the morning, I'm trying to keep my eyes open and everything else. All of a sudden, that would pop up in the arms of an angel, and the the saddest looking dogs in the world. I'm just like,
They all need a home.
and it would be at that point I'd be like, all right, I gotta go get some coffee.
I mean, that's quite the legacy for Sarah McLachlan now. Is that when her normal claim to fame and actual music talent is now not a thing anymore because it's not the 90s. It's just that song at 1 in the
And
morning and sad dogs.
I mean, hey, she's getting royalties. She's
Yeah.
getting royalties.
That's true. That's good. Well, I mean, since we are doing campy movies, I know Mark and I very frequently talk about how we used to, roast marshmallows around the fires of Camp Wakanda, a place that neither of us ever been because it's definitely not real. Have any of us ever actually gone to summer camps before? Was this a thing for any of us growing up?
I didn't go to summer camp. I went to what they call field school when I was doing my degree in geology. It was one of our last classes. And it kind of was like a summer camp. We camped out for almost a month because we were mapping outcrops. But when you get a bunch of geologists out in the field in the summertime in tents, you have a lot of drinking
And schist
and
goes
a lot of
down.
drunk people. Right. Right. It was serious stuff, man. Serious stuff, but not as a kid. Just more as
I was gonna say,
young adults, a very young adults.
You thought geologists couldn't get, loose and crazy? Oh boy, the stories that she has never shared.
I hear that scientists do it in their genes, and that's genes with a G. All right, I'll show myself out. I'm sorry. That was awful.
I remember we were camping one time, and my professor, I think he was diabetic. I think he had a sugar problem, but he got drunk off of boxed wine, of all things.
There's a
He was
drunk.
drinking boxed wine in the camp at night,
Ooh. Oh man.
and he wanted to play Truth or Dare with the students.
Oh no.
Oh,
That's a horror movie in itself right there.
Very
I mean, it's
interesting.
how one starts. Oh my gosh.
It's like, I mean, it's like the teacher sitting there. Who wants to play Truth or Dare? Not me. Weirdo.
They were all drunk off of boxed wine.
And
I was not, because I was thinking, oh God, if something happens, what if one of us gets bit by a snake? Because we've got rattlers down here and all sorts of, poisonous things, moccasins. We were on the water. I'm like, what's going to happen? Who's going to drive us out of here?
Yeah. And the adults with degrees are not in a condition to literally do anything, let alone suck the venom out of a wound or drive anyone anywhere.
So that's what I said. I'm like, nope, not me. I'm gonna go sleep.
Did you hear off in the distance? Shh, shh, shh.
No.
but hey, as soon as that court case is wrapped up, we'll be able to discuss who was actually involved in it. So be on the lookout.
Well,
Joe-
this is only 20 years ago. So
Okay.
Yeah, the statute of limitations is passed.
Exactly.
Well, I have not actually been to a summer camp before. The closest that I've actually been to was a camp for my ninth grade church group or something. They tried to show me the light, and it just blinded me, and so I didn't see it until I was a man. But I ripped my pants going over an obstacle course, and it was the only pair of pants I had with me, so that was fun.
Yeah, I can imagine you weren't exactly revved up like a deuce at that point.
Honestly, I had to haphazardly use the sewing kit they had there to stitch up the jeans, and that had to last me 2 more days. So yeah,
did you get a sewing pad for that?
Did you get a sewing badge? No, that's the Boy Scouts.
Oh, my bad.
no badge. I just got Catholic guilt for my time, so
That
it was
sounds
good.
about right.
Good. It's very fun. So yes, that's all I got. But Joe, are you going to walk us through the history of camp? Because I feel like looking at these notes here is something you had planned on doing.
Yeah, it's something that I definitely it steered in a direction that I was not seeing, because when we think of camp or campiness, where do our minds usually go with this?
Tents,
Tents.
cabins, maybe woods.
Ideally
Jason Voorhees.
cabins. Oh my gosh. Jason Voorhees, yes. So we're ticks. Oh my god, so many ticks. Oh, I
Red
never
bug.
think
Oh
about
wait,
it.
that's the south. I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what it
no.
is up there, but yeah,
Was you say bed bugs?
red bugs.
Red bugs. Okay, I'm like bed bugs. I'm like, oh no. I mean,
they
you've been
find you?
camping in a hotel. That's a total possibility.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
I don't know if they're in the same family, but they're chiggers, really. They burrow into skin and then they itch, and then you get
Oh.
webs, and it's just
They
nasty.
might
That's gonna be
be.
a sci-fi movie where it's going to
Mhm.
be giant chiggers coming after everybody.
right.
See, that checks. That works out, because that's where most of us usually go when we think of campy movies, or even the term campy means you kind of have this, exaggerated, really anything. It's outrageous. It's inappropriate, kind of out of date, but at the same time, very amusing. So we typically think of 60s horror movies or 60s serials like Buck Rogers, where things are just kind of outlandishly big. So whether those be some insects that are just walking around and we're all like,
Now,
or
hold on. Now, Joe, since we're audio and a video program, for those of you not watching the video, Joe just kind of did the oh, I'm about to be killed before the commercial break on Star Trek in the original series.
Yep.
Sorry, we have to visually describe these
That's
things.
true. Now that this is an option that you may be missing out on if you are
I was just going
anywhere
to leave
else.
the awkward silence in there. I think that was
I would describe him. He looked like a mime trapped in a box,
Yeah.
trying to get out of the box.
This is
Yeah.
perfect. I love that we've added video now.
To our listeners, though, for like that 3 seconds, they're like, "What the fuck is going on over there? I have no idea what's going on. There's no cues."
well, I was
God.
looking at him. I still couldn't understand it.
Nope.
There you go.
Mhm. I never would have made it as an actor in the 1960s. I don't know if I'd make it now. Obviously, if you don't, this is my terror.
Now,
He's
for those
trapped
of you
in the
listening
box
at
again.
home, he's doing the look again,
Yes.
just in case for those of you that want the
He's moving
description.
his fingers up in the air,
Yeah.
like he's
Yes.
tickling the air.
Playing
So-
jazz hand. That's frightened at the same time.
In which
Right,
case,
jazz
you may think that my behavior was quite campish in itself, with how
Oh, no.
ridiculous it was just there. But yeah, that's usually what we think of. But believe it or not, this is actually a 19th century term to mean all of those things, but also was used to describe gay men at the time.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
you referred to a man who is typically dressed in a corset in a dress with extra makeup as he is so camp right now. It's a French term. These are also the same people who brought you the scoring system for the game of tennis, which I love to play, but makes zero sense. How you go from love to 15 to 30 to 40 to winning.
Wow, that's
Makes plenty
fascinating.
sense if you don't think about it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So, and that actually, it
And
stuck.
vibrate.
And it actually pretty much stuck with that connotation literally until about the 1960s, where it was used kind of in tandem with each other, whether it was meaning this new pop culture term of this over the top kind of ridiculous behavior where something is so cheesy and so bad that it's actually good, while also at the same time still being used to describe gay men. But that's also where we start to see the term kind of lean a lot more towards talking about pop culture and movies. And so it starts to separate itself from that around this time as well. So by the time you even hit like the 70s or 80s, no one's using camp anymore to really describe homosexual males. It's just, horror movies or science fiction movies at this point.
So, would you think then that that term would be kind of indirectly related to the term absurdity? Kind of absurd?
Oh, maybe.
Because all that stuff that you just described is kind of absurd in a way.
It's true. It really
Maybe a
is.
synonym, maybe?
It might be. I just went off of Merriam-Webster's like nice long article that they had off of that, and I think I saw before I went to them, I actually saw like another website where I saw it again being used as this term for that, and I'm like, really? I'm gonna have to check this website. I've never heard of it for that use before. So I had to like look around, check a few things. Like, well, unless Merriam and Webster themselves, the dukes of the dictionary, the duchesses of words. They might be making this up as they go along, but you know what? They've got me convinced.
Yeah, it seems like that's. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was just going to mention it's probably a good idea to mention that.
I'm sorry, Joe. I called the other
yeah.
Joe.
It's
Sorry.
okay. It's okay. The uglier of the two. Just remember, the uglier of the two is me.
It's been a long day, guys. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I'm like, wait a minute. I
Sorry.
did that twice. I did that
It's
All
twice.
right, so we're gonna back up and redo this whole intro now.
Yeah. If you look at my window and you turn away quickly, just remember that's Mark. That's me. We'll be good. But I guess the big thing to focus on here is that definitely don't use that term anymore.
No,
'Cause-
not for that.
Because that's not good for anybody. So happy we moved on from that. But Campy, yeah, definitely has retained that moniker for movies, because I can't remember hearing another way to really describe these films in my travels. I don't know about Chris and Leslie. What do you think?
Well, I mean, every time I think of a campy horror movie, I think of something, on the verge of comedic or so outlandish that it's like, come on, they really went there. Case in point, I've scored a campy movie, Snake Out of Compton, for, I mean, when I got that one down, I'm like, This is what I'm doing. Okay, all right, that works. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is a real movie. You can watch it. Snake out of Compton. Not kidding.
It's about a giant snake in Compton.
Well, I'm sold.
In case you didn't really get that from the title.
And it's a parody.
Yeah, the title's mysterious. I still feel
Exactly.
like I need to do homework to understand what's going on here.
I mean, it says snake, but really, it could be any reptile. We don't know.
There might be a spider in there. I can't remember. It's been so long.
Mad scientist, who knows?
No, that is in there.
I know. They don't.
Well, they do now.
They don't.
Well, I guess now that we've gotten like kind of like the dictionary definition as well as the kind of like how the term evolved, I think it's only fair that we start talking about some of our favorite campy movies and a little bit about them as well as why we like them so much. So at this point in time, I did have our guests going first, but I will allow you to pass and put Mark on the spot if you really want to.
Should we do a sidebar, Leslie?
I don't know. He doesn't look too happy about that idea.
It's okay.
Hang
He's
on,
in the
hang on.
void. There's nothing he can do. He can't hurt you.
Hold on, sidebar.
They're
All right, so we're
conferring.
gonna let Mark go.
Well, that's okay. This is not the first time I've had to go first, so it's not a big deal. Fortunately for me, I do have I've brought more than one, right? But in honor of our friend Ed, who's over at the 80s Movie Podcast, who actually had worked for this studio at one point in time, I just have to mention a very special film called Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead.
I've heard of this movie. That's trauma,
I've never
right?
seen this movie.
That's
Oh.
yeah, that's Traumaville.
This is absolutely a Trauma Films exclusive.
Wow.
I'm sure exclusive is bolded and underlined to let everyone know
Oh,
this
With a
film is coming
italicized?
from nowhere but Trauma.
hey, forget about it, okay? This is a 2006 black comedy directed by the legendary Lloyd Kaufman. And they wanted to mention Ed specifically because, he actually worked with Lloyd back in the day. He was, I don't know if you
nice.
guys knew this, part of our Twitter podcast fam, but this movie, believe it or not, took 6 years to go from script to screen. And Lloyd Kaufman and
amazing.
his wife, yeah, dude, they spent their own money to produce this, $500,000, okay, which sounds like a lot of money, but it really doesn't the moment you actually start watching this film. I don't know where the money went, but that's beside the point. Now, this movie almost earned back its budget, actually, earning $22,623 in theaters. You'll notice that's nowhere close to earning back its budget, but hey, that's fine. The most shocking data from this, though, it somehow has a 64% certified fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
That is insane.
Very.
Considering I've never seen it. You think that
Well,
everybody had seen this movie.
I used to when I would get on the internet a lot back in the day. Back when it was on just a computer, you didn't have it on your phones and everything else. I would check out Fangoria.com all the time, and they were talking about this movie so much. I was going, okay, I just hear about it so much, I don't even want to watch it now.
Yeah.
That's what happened. I never saw it.
Yeah, actually, Chris, that's exactly where I originally read about this movie. A lot of the horror, the horror fans out there, like you mentioned back in the day, we were going to these websites and getting the previews.
Right.
And this movie ended up actually being one of the trailer movies on the Cannibal the Musical film by Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Right.
Distributed by Troma Films, but produced by Trey Parker and Matt Stone at the University of Colorado Boulder. And so I remember reading about this, and then years later, when I would purchase the Cannibal the Musical film, all of a sudden I went, "Holy crap! I remember this. I can't believe it actually got made, and it looks brutal." So here's the scoop on this film. Okay, so a New Jersey chicken fast food restaurant is built on a sacred Native American burial ground, which is an amazingly good idea. And the intro for this film takes place in this burial ground before the restaurant actually is built, and it shows two teenagers attempting to have sex. Now, attempting is a very important distinction
Oh.
because it's not quite going according to plan. Um, so, fully earning its R rating. During this sequence, a zombie hand actually pokes up out of the earth between these lovers and plays a game with the male half of this sandwich, trying to figure out how to describe this without fully using our explicit rating. But let's just say it involves an exit hole and a couple of fingers.
Oh,
Yeah. All
Classy.
the while, the man off screen is watching these two, and he is servicing himself. We'll just put it that way.
okay.
So off
Well,
to a
this-
really good start,
Yep.
by the way.
mhm.
Yeah. This is how most family films begin. So
Say, I think
I
this
was just
earned
watching
its
this,
first
and
X in its rating at this point already.
it's it's a little jarring when when you turn this on and you go, where could this go from here?
Like what? Yep. What's next?
Must
Yep.
go up.
Yep.
Oh,
The only
no,
direction.
It went
Oh.
down.
Oh, you're not right.
Yeah.
Your play of words are horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's
Sorry, I'll just go away now.
No, I prefer you keep this up.
it really is a week's worth of stacked dishes. You just
Ugh.
lift another one up and something else spills out, and each one just makes you that much more frustrated. But ultimately, this restaurant called American Chicken Bunker is built on top of this site, like noticeably where these teenagers were trying to consummate, this relationship. And a lot of weird things happen in this restaurant that let me just kind of go through quickly because I can tell everyone is wishing they probably hadn't eaten what they did this evening. A couple things that happen. A man actually ends up in a meat grinder and is turned into Sloppy Joe's at one point.
Okay.
Nice.
And this happens because a chicken breast comes to life and shoves him in there.
Just the breast.
Just the chicken breast,
Okay.
not the whole chicken.
Not the whole chicken. Just okay.
Yep. A man gets attacked by a chicken that he's attempting to have sex with, which I'll just kind of let that one dance in your heads for a moment. I won't visually explain that one.
This is like when a small town hooked on phonics library employee attempts to teach the local PD how to read.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
What's this?
Which geographic area is this in the United States? What is this happening? And I'm just curious.
I
You
have to
stay
check.
down south, I might actually be a little offended by this.
I don't actually know that answer. Maybe it's just
Just
knocked
a
out of my
chicken
brain.
restaurant in an undisclosed location.
Well,
We're Indian burial ground.
I can tell you right now, this already sounds like a winner.
Well,
Winner,
I
winner,
know.
chicken dinner.
See, there we go. Everyone gets one.
Wow.
Fun.
Well, this is just kind of in my head for a reason, but it may have been like New York, so I think you're safe.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I'm not because that's the hat I
Oh.
always wear. But
For the audio
yes.
listeners, he just spun his hat around and it said
Yes,
New York on it.
yes, that's right. See, Chris is getting it now. A few other things that are happening here, though. Yes, the man is attacked by a chicken he's trying to have sex with. And throughout this film, there's this noticeable poisoning of the earth, which, if you can't tell by now, it will infiltrate into the food they're serving. And eventually, we end up getting these half chicken, half human, zombified creatures.
Zombies, yes.
Yeah, that go laying eggs that then spawn more of these zombie chicken human hybrids.
So, in
And,
true zombie form, do these chickens move slowly or are they fast?
No, they have some movement to them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not a true zombie where it's just
Mhm.
kind of slow moving. You can run from it.
No,
Also, I
no,
like the bold choice of calling it poltergeist when clearly these are not ghosts.
well, I mean, maybe it's the ghosts of the angry spirits that they built this
Ah.
this restaurant on top of. I'm not sure. I don't want to interpret it for them. But I really say the movie hits a high point where the man who is having sex with the chicken, they do manage to save him by shoving a broomstick up his ass, which, I mean, if that's not glory of special effects, I don't know what is. But it sounds bad. It really does. And trust me, it is
great.
Look, I'm still stuck on the part of the chicken breast attacking the guy, and I'm trying to visualize a chicken breast that you're about to cook, attacking somebody. It's not working out very well in my mind. It's not.
I'm glad that's the one you're stuck on.
Yeah. I was gonna say the imagery of the others is probably
Yep, that's
any
not the
better.
visual I'm stuck with or haunted by at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
I can tell you right now, this whole episode is nothing's going to compare to this movie right here.
Nope.
Because
this is a
oh
tough
my
act to follow.
God, Mark! Of course, it's the movie.
Hey, you made me go first. This is not my fault.
I'm really
Okay.
regretting that choice right now.
We made a bad decision.
Well, honestly,
All right, sidebar.
They're
Okay.
talking to each other again. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
for those of you watching or listening to the podcast, Chris and Leslie just joined forces in the middle of their screen.
I was whispering loud enough they could hear me.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, dude, really, this is one of those movies where I've seen plenty of campy horror before. Nothing I had done in my career up to this point prepared me for what I saw in this movie. And there's nothing you can do. There's literally nothing you can do that'll ever like put you in front of this and go, yep, I've seen that before. Because trust me, you haven't.
Yeah, I could say if I woke up with my head stapled to the carpet tomorrow morning, I would not be nearly surprised over what you just told us about this movie.
Oh, at minimum, you'd be leaning there, halfway on the ground, and you just go, fascinating,
I don't even know if you go fascinating at that point. It's just like, okay. Now, for those of you listening, and the ones that can see us and everything, the whole time Mark is describing this film, I'm shaking my head, and this, as I said earlier, this is coming from the guy who scored a movie called Snake Outta Compton, in which there's one scene in this movie, no lie, one of the characters has sex with the giant snake. Poltergeist because completely one up to that entire experience. So yeah, okay.
Well, I would love to leave it with that. However,
oh, there's more.
Dot.
Hold on. This is actually the stuff that isn't ridiculously over the top.
Oh God.
So there's actually references within Poltergeist that reference other major trauma films if you're interested in looking at them, because what trauma films likes to do is be very self-referential to all the films they produced, and that's not because they're great. That's just because they think they're the B movie Marvel or the C or D or however far down the alphabet you want to go. That's not at the top. And what's really cool about this, though, I was watching this to kind of look for references the first time. And the main character actually wears the I Love the Monster Hero shirt, which is a nod to Toxic Avenger.
Mm-hmm.
There's posters of Romeo and Juliet that show up when nature calls. There's DVD copies of Tales from the Crapper. Once again, these are high-flying, award-winning trauma films.
Very highbrow, high art.
Yeah. Now,
and when he said award-winning, he's not lying.
Like the Razzies, they dominate every year. There was some controversy, though. Yeah. There's controversy in 2011 for this film, though. As I mentioned, it came out in 2006, and it would appear again, but not in front of anyone on films. What ended up happening in 2011, a DVD cleaning kit where you take the disc, the DVD disc, you insert it into your player, and it automatically cleans it for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, several of these DVD kits, I believe it was like in Southern California, were prepackaged with Poltergeist instead of the cleaner disc.
Oh God!
so people who were hopelessly trying to clean their DVDs were greeted to Poltergeist.
And now what? Yeah. Now I gotta ask this though. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I gotta ask this. Now there with some DVDs, sometimes it pops up with the menu and everything else. But was it one of these DVDs where the movie just started playing?
I'm not sure, Chris, but you can only imagine if it did, because I described to you what the intro of this movie was.
Exactly.
that
That's why I'm asking.
Hmm. Yeah,
and
this
that
was a
potentially
direct
yeah.
to disc feature that went directly to the feature. There was no
Yes.
time to mess around with menus.
They need to
Yes.
save money, so there is no menu. You just
Yes.
cut
Now,
corners.
Oh man.
there are plenty of geopolitical things that happen in this movie that are
Of
ridiculous and over the
course.
top that I won't mention. There's plenty of offensive things that are also included in there, but for people who have seen this movie, even they realize that these offensive, like, appropriation based things aren't even really the focus of the movie. Someone just threw them in there. They show up for a minute and they leave. So the thing you really need to look for are people who are exploding because they're laying chicken eggs from the inside out, and it's really gross. My hat is off to you. Thank you for listening to my absolutely ridiculously over the top movie Poultrygeist.
I'm just
Wow.
trying to picture like the poor kid that when the family got this DVD cleaner thinking it was gonna be a great thing. A kid goes to clean the first DVD. I wonder what Poltergeist is. I'll go ahead and put this in.
Yes,
And
instant.
then that's how the new serial killer was started because he watched Poultrygeist at the very beginning.
Yes.
He didn't even make the whole movie; he just saw the beginning. Oh, okay. So let's rewind a little bit and go back to when I was talking about I would see this pop up on Fangoria all the time and everything else. I'm glad I didn't watch this movie. That sounds horrible. Hats off to Lloyd Kaufman for actually, having the guts to put this out there, but no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Imagine this, Chris. Imagine if
I
someone
don't want
came.
to.
Imagine, but imagine if somebody came to you with this idea and you thought, you know what? Why don't we let's dip into the savings, honey. Let's put off retirement.
I need a score. What?
Oh,
For this?
oh
I need some
no.
music.
Oh man, if they came to me and wanted me to score this movie, it'd be one of those I would have to sit there and really think
I
about
need
it.
you
Do
to
I
catch,
want to do this?
and they ask you, I need you to catch the ambiance now
Yes.
of chicken zombies attacking people.
Yeah.
Can you do it?
Hey. I'm gonna use a really weird voice here. Don't know why. Hey, Chris. I want you to really think about what the movie would sound like if you have a man's penis inside of chicken. What would that look like on screen, and what would it sound like?
A
In
lot
your
of
mind.
tubas. A lot of tubas.
And then the only hope was a broom. Could stole the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
the only thing I could save this bloke is a broom to the arsehole. What can you do with that?
You sound like just like this bizarre, like underworld perverted Michael Caine.
Right?
It's
I thought the same
fantastic.
thing. Like, Michael Caine? Where did that come from?
Which we can make our own campy movie, and that's be Mark the whole time.
There you go. I could do the
hey,
intro.
I would score it. I would score it, so we're good.
All right. Well, that's what happens when you let me go first. Who is up next?
All right.
Joe, this is your wheelhouse, buddy.
That's right. I will go my time to shine. And what kind of stinks is that I don't know why somehow I missed the idea that we were supposed to think of two movies for this. Because I definitely was torn between two and settled on the one. So if we get around to doing two, I can only very loosely describe the other one that I absolutely love. But mine is I guess, a more recent film because it was made in the past 2 decades. It came out in 2002, and I remember watching this with my friends. We used to basically in high school we had converted this piece of my parents' farm property into an area where we could watch movies and drink lots and lots of soda and just get totally weird. And no one would know we were doing it because the soda was definitely beer. So we were just back there drinking, watching movies, having a great time. And this was like an
So it was
opening one
beer.
of the night where it is a Bruce Campbell film where he plays Elvis. And he's living in a retirement home that is being haunted by a mummy. And since this mummy is of Egyptian descent, it goes with the name of Hotep. But it's also a southern mummy, so it uses the name Bubba as well. And this is, of course, the classic Bubba Hotep.
This movie is awesome.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
It is amazing. I love the movie,
Mhm.
and I'm so glad you picked it.
Yes, it's like it's unbelievable like how believable Bruce Campbell is as Elvis in this movie.
It is. That was the craziest thing about watching that movie was the fact that Bruce Campbell sounded and acted just like Elvis.
And despite this being a very campy movie, his like impersonation of Elvis isn't actually campy. It's like
No,
not over the
Yeah.
top. It is just spot on, really well done Elvis Presley. So when you look at like the premise of the movie, I have given over the whole idea of like there's this mummy like basically at a retirement home, but you might be asking yourself, what is Elvis doing there because he's supposed to be dead? Well,
Is
as
this the afterlife?
as it would turn out, Elvis was very sick of the fame, very sick of the concerts, the movies, the ridiculous copious sex with women whose names he never got, and he just wanted to be done with it all. So he went on a cross-country tour looking at Elvis impersonators, where he found the best one, who's also played by Bruce Campbell. And he gets this other impersonator to agree on a contract that they would switch spots so that he would become the Elvis impersonator and the impersonator would become Elvis. And this way, he could just get back to enjoying the music he once loved to make. And this was all going fine and well, but due to a freak barbecue accident, he lost his contract he'd made with the man, which, if you've seen this movie, it is a glorious barbecue accident where
Barbecue accident.
he's like grilling hot
Hey,
dogs.
hey, barbecue accidents are a real thing.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
Dad had one
that's
not too
nothing
long
that's so yeah.
So
Had
he's like,
blaze. He rented the house. It's like, I've got a blaze. Dad, what? Blaze. Strong words there, Dad.
But you see him doing it like he's like horribly grilling hot dogs, and then like they're beyond burnt, and he's flipping them anyway, and he's using lighter fluid on his barbecue on his grill, and then he just kind of leaves it like on its side, and fluid's just dripping out. So of course, like he goes to talk to people at a picnic table, and then the grill and his trailer just go up in flames. So he can no longer really switch back to being the real Elvis. So he decides he's got to go on the road as, the Elvis impersonator to make his money. And in a freak gyrating accident, he breaks his hip, falls off stage, and ends up in a coma and winds up in this East Texas retirement home.
Yes, and not to be left out, it's the Shady Rest Retirement Home.
Yes.
Yeah.
80 acres.
Mhm.
Now
And
the
now,
best part is his friend.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because if this story was not unbelievable enough, it turns out also in this retirement home is JFK. Which you may also be saying, but Joe, JFK is definitely dead. We saw that happen.
This has got to
Actually,
be the afterlife. Yeah.
yeah,
No.
no,
Afterlife.
No.
that was faked. Whole thing was faked. He never actually got shot. But Lyndon B. Johnson did have a small scandal going on where he actually, when they brought JFK back from the faked assassination, he did actually take his brain out of his body and replaced it with a bag of sand. And then, because of the genius of it all, they, and I quote, dyed him. So that,
Because he is played by a black actor.
yes.
Oh.
yes.
Yes, he's played by Ossie Davis.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love Ozzie Davis.
Yep.
He's such a good actor.
And he does just an amazing part in this like movie as a plausible like, I'm in this retirement home. I swear to God, I'm insane. No one believes me, and it's just a touch under George Costanza, who's been admitted to the hospital by Steinbrenner. So these two then notice that like one by one, like they just seem to be like members just of the retirement home seem to be dying, and like most people just don't even think about it, including the staff, because well they're old. They're just going to die. And so we start seeing also these, what they say, these giant flying cockroaches, which turn out to be scarabs, because of course it's heralding in Bubba Hotep. And it is up to Elvis and JFK to put an end to, which by the way, they don't actually say Bubba Hotep until literally the last like 30 minutes of this movie. Until then, they just refer to the mummy as a soul sucker. And because the soul's not very big, but Bubba Hotep can't walk very well. It can be sucked out of any orifice of the body, but one is just more convenient than the others.
Hmm.
And that's the butthole.
Why
So
did
this
both of our movies involve undead things and buttholes being mixed together like that?
The opening monologue of Elvis is him complaining about a growth on his penis as well.
That's lovely.
Yep. And then when he sees a young woman bend over in front of him, he says he feels it move like a pigeon with a heart attack fluttering just before death.
oh my goodness. We just
Oh
That's,
yeah,
that's
watch it.
poetry right there.
It was-
right?
Yeah.
You match that in interpretive dance.
Now the folks listening, they can't see what I'm doing, but I was giving Joe De Niro face there for a minute, like just the, you know, okay, all right,
Jeez.
that's what we're doing. All right,
So
yeah.
that is my pick. So unlike Mark's movie, this movie did turn a profit. It had a budget of $1 million, and it made a staggering $1.2 million.
Mm.
So everyone got their money back, and just a bit more. And we call that stonks.
Profit.
Good investment, good profit.
Good profit there.
Yeah, and even like usually with campy movies go, like you see reviews of them and they're bashed, but at the same time, like this movie's stupid, but we absolutely love it. Roger Ebert himself loved this movie, and went on to say how again, like Bruce Campbell and everyone in this in this movie like plays everything very believable, but at the same time he does say that the movie itself doesn't work because it's not really horror, as in like it's not, at no point are you actually terrified of this movie. But then again, like, you know, most campy horror movies, I guess, like, I don't know, like the higher brow ones like Friday the 13th, that's campy and at the same time could still be scary. Poultrygeist, we are only afraid for our sanity, but the movie itself, not so much.
And
And
our
this kind of works in the same vein as that.
Now there is a little bit of film history that I think we should point out here. Okay, now just like with a lot of these like goofy comedies and horror movies, sometimes they just kind of throw things out there at the end to see if it'll catch people's attention. And when Bubba Hotep came out, they didn't actually know if it was going to be positively received or not. And we almost ended up getting what was called Bubba Nosferatu, Curse of the She Vampires, which I'm not making this up. I wish I was. But it actually had Paul Giamatti attached to it at one point.
No
Oh
way.
my.
Ron Perlman was attached
Oh.
to it at one
That I
point too.
believe, and I wish he would have been in there. I love
Yeah,
I love Ron Perlman.
He would have been the
Yeah.
role of Elvis. And Giamatti was actually attached to this for several years, as recently as 2013 or 2014, right in that area. So he was like gunning for this, trying to get funding. They never could.
Mhm.
But in 2018, there was a 5-issue series of this that came out by IDW. So they published Bubba Hotep and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers.
Well, I need to
And
find this freaking. I need to find that series.
the only reason why I knew about it, I walked into I walked into like it wasn't Barnes and Noble, it was just like a coffee shop, and I see this and I go, I didn't remember ever hearing about this. What how did this happen? So it's out there. Definitely take a look at it. So yeah, and I want to say that Bubba Hotep even crossed over with Army of Darkness at one point.
That as it
There's an-
should. Like Bruce Campbell should be able to see himself in a crossover like that.
Right.
Yeah, that happened. That happened like a couple of years after the Bubba Hotep and Cosmic Bloodsuckers thing. So there's more
Well,
stuff to follow.
I know why Paul Giamatti was attached, because he did what was it? John Dies at the End, which was also by Don Coscarelli, who did the Phantasm series. And what's great, since we are a film scoring podcast, Brian Tyler did the music for Bubba Hotep, who is best known for Fast and the Furious
Ooh,
and
nice.
Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag. We did a composer showcase on him. And I mean, a huge, huge composer. And he did Bubba Hotep, and he also did John Dies at the End. And I remember one of the things he was talking about on the behind the scenes of this movie right here, about when he was scoring it, that he would sit there in his car and come up with the themes, and then he would call himself on his phone, sing the theme or the music that he had in his head into his answering machine just so he could code back and be like, all right, now this is what I got to play.
I love it.
Like
Of
my-
all the roundabout ways to do things, this is like when you saw people at the start of the pandemic, like like having like meetings like we're having right now, and to get a picture of it, they take their phone and they take a picture of it. It's like it's a button. You can screen capture it, and that way it's there without you doing this.
I can't say anything because I still do that for the podcast on Twitter.
Hey, the only thing that's popping in my head is like, you don't need conventional composing methods when you got family. That's all I can think of.
For family.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
So then, now that Mark and I have gone, we've come back to where we were going to start. And Leslie and Chris,
right.
the con is yours.
So I'm going to let Leslie go first on this one.
So I'm not a big horror movie person, but I have noticed that I will watch a comedic horror movie every once in a while. So, when y'all were coming up with this idea of doing campy things, the first thing that came to my mind was Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh, yes.
I love that movie, and it's campy in its nature. So it came out in 2010. And I'm going to read to you the synopsis off of IMDb. It says, hillbillies Tucker and Dale are on vacation at their dilapidated mountain cabin when they are mistaken for murderers by a group of preppy college students. Now, there is another summary on here, and it says, written by Tucker. Two lovable hillbillies are headed to their fixer-upper vacation cabin to drink some beer, do some fishing, and have a good time. But when they run into a group of preppy college kids who assume from their looks that they must be inbred, chainsaw-wielding killers, Tucker and Dale's vacation takes a bloody and hilarious turn for the worst. I love this movie. Because, I think that deep down, there is a seriousness to it as far as stereotypes are concerned and how people will judge others by their appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And you see a lot of that with these preppy college students because Tucker and Dale, they look like just your normal hillbillies, and they've got these thick Southern accents. And, but if you watch the movie, you see that truly they have good hearts. They're trying to fix up this cabin that, they're fixer upper vacation home that they were excited about. But things take a turn for the worst because one of their friends ends up in the cabin. She has an accident and they find her and they wanted to try to make sure she was okay. So she ends up in the cabin. Well, the preppy kids think that Tucker and Dale wanted to kill her or do something bad to her. So they kept trying to come at them to save their friend and they end up killing themselves. And I think the funniest scene, in my opinion, is where one of the college kids falls into the wood chipper. And he says, these college kids are hurling themselves into my wood chipper.
My favorite part, though, is the kid's legs are sticking out, blood
Yes.
gushing out, and then
He's trying to
Alan
save
Tudyk.
him.
he's like, "Hey, you okay?"
Yeah.
And that was
He's
that
like,
was
"Why would
was that
they
Alan
do that?"
Tudyk's character doing that?
Yeah,
that
it was
cool.
Tudyk.
That was Alan
Yeah.
Tudyk's character, and he's like, "Dude, he just locked himself into the wood chipper."
Right? They must have a suicide pact or something.
I remember it was another one of those websites. It was upcominghorrormovies.com, and they were talking about Tucker and Dale versus Evil. You guys watch this movie, and I'm like, what in the hell is Tucker and Dale versus Evil? And I see the DVD out. I'm like, okay, fine. It's like $7.50 at Walmart. Fine, I'll buy it. Okay. Popped it in. The movie starts up, and you get the somewhat very cheesy scene of the college kids, and they're like, "We forgot the bear," and you get this really bad acting moment there, and then you see Tucker and Dale drive by, and then when it gets to the part where Alan Tudyk and Tyler Levine start talking, and it was like, wait a minute, so this is what the movie's about, okay? And I was like, what kind of movie? I'm like, I thought this was a horror movie. So then when the kids start dying, it's like, what?
Yeah. It's hilarious how much it escalates, right? Like it's
That escalates really quickly too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah. I
Bees
remember.
part
Oh
kills
yeah,
me
yeah. Saws
with the
into a
bees.
beehive.
Yeah.
Face is all swollen.
So this is another one of those movies that I ended up seeing a preview for on a DVD. I can't remember which one. And at that point in time, I only knew Alan Tudyk, for Firefly.
Mhm.
But Tyler Labine would end up being the dude that like I would end up following from this because he would go on to be in like several different TV shows. I was a really big fan of his appearances in Reaper and Deadbeat. I don't know if y'all remember the Hulu show Deadbeat, where he plays a medium who sells his services for hire.
No.
But his comedic chops are just ridiculously off the charts, and him and Tudyk together, I can only imagine what that set must have been like for this movie. It's just so damn funny.
He probably couldn't keep a straight face. It's really good.
If you own the movie, I definitely suggest watching the movie with the commentary on, because all it is director Eli Craig, Tyler Labine, and Alan Tudyk.
Oh,
That is it.
that's brilliant.
No, it is comedy because
Mhm.
Alan Tudyk's name, to Dick, and they
Yeah.
keep going with that joke right there throughout the entire commentary. So
It's
so
just a great movie. I love it.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked that one.
That's the first one
Well-
that came to mind. I'm like, I got it. I
And
got one.
I'd also like that this is the first movie so far that involved no weird butt stuff.
Right.
Exactly.
So if so
Right.
far this is the cleanest movie of the picks, where like
I think
it's
we
a
should
good
have went
recommendation to the general public.
because it went from bad to tolerable.
Yeah, we're going up. It's a good trend.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
Yay.
okay, so for some behind the scenes really quick, or I should say some post-production stuff. Now to back up Leslie on this one, there was supposed to be a potential sequel here
Ooh.
where the movie would have ended up having the guys go to Yale, where they wanted it to be like Good Will Hunting and Texas Chainsaw Massacre having a baby. Alan Tudyk actually wanted to make it more of a From Dusk Till Dawn type of film,
Okay.
and it ended up being in like production hell up until 2015, 2016, I believe, and then it just kind of died on the vine. So
Ah,
no one was really happy with the script, and so we just never got it.
too bad.
I would have watched it. Yes.
I think
Yeah, I
this
would
is one of those movies that I think if they try to do a sequel now, it will probably fall flat.
Yeah.
It will
Mhm.
not have the same charm that it did the first time around.
Kind of like
And
Super Troopers 2. Well,
yeah,
fun and okay. It should have been made
They
about
waited too long.
15 years ago.
Right. They waited too long.
fun fact about Super Troopers 2, a friend of mine actually worked on that movie. He was the Canadian version of Farva.
Nice. He's one of the bounties.
Yes, Paul Walter Hauser. I worked with him on a reality show, and Paul's career is just like really taken off,
Good
and
for him.
he ended up playing Richard Jewell in the film by Clint Eastwood.
That's right.
Ooh.
Yeah. So when that's the thing with Paul, I see him pop up on stuff all the time now. It's like Cobra Kai popped up. I'm like, I didn't know Paul was in this. Sitting there watching Superstore, he pops up in Super Troopers with the same way. So I'll see Paul pop up, and I'm going, okay. Like, hey buddy. I'll send him a message on Instagram every so often. Hey buddy. Hey. I don't get much.
So that was my pick. Go,
Okay.
Chris. I don't want to hear this because I know which one you're gonna pick.
Actually, no, I'm not going to pick the one that you think I was going to pick.
What?
Yep.
Ooh.
I had two in mind, and it was Joe's singing right before we started recording that made me change my mind.
Ah, dang it, I ruined it.
No, you made it better.
You made it better.
But I will not be talking about the first film in this franchise. I will be talking about the third. This is in
Ah,
1991 Critters 3.
yeah, I love it. Already
I
excited.
will be reading. I got to get my voice ready for this one. I will be reading from the IMDb plot. The tiny furball aliens that will eat anything or anyone set their sights on a Los Angeles apartment tower.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bum, bum, bum.
Okay, the reason why I picked this one because Joe started singing "Power of the Night" from the first Critters film, and I have been a huge fan of the Critters franchise for the longest time. So, and another reason why I picked this one because this was the feature film debut of Academy Award winning actor Leonardo DiCaprio.
I never watched.
Yeah.
You fail miserably.
Yeah, no. Any Critter movie.
So this was the first of the direct-to-video sequels for Critters. Critters 1 and 2 came out in the theaters. Critters 3 and 4 were shot back-to-back in 1991 and 92. Now, this was New Line's attempt at, well, a lot of people say this was New Line's attempt at Gremlins, although the script to Critters was written way before Gremlins. I love the Critters franchise, and the third one went so above and beyond to the point where we have the tiny little aliens farting after eating a bunch of beans inside the kitchen. Not kidding. Not kidding.
So aliens, I guess, fart.
Yeah, especially when they eat a lot of chili beans. But this was
Human traits.
so the story is a family, single father, has 2 kids, and he just came back from a trip from the Grand Canyon, and they stopped by the legendary Grover's Bend, Kansas, where the tiny little aliens are running amok, and that's where they meet Leonardo DiCaprio's character. I mean, fresh off of growing pains at this point, and then the alien somehow leaves like 2 or 3 eggs up under the truck, and then the truck lands into the Los Angeles apartment complex that is being how do I put this? They're being evicted basically, and by this tyrant landlord who turns out to be Leonardo DiCaprio's stepfather in the film. So the aliens grow to be bigger size and everything else, and that's when the furballs start having characteristics. One of them rolls into a thing of Clorox, and then he gets the white streak, kind of like Stripe from Gremlins.
Oh, yeah.
And you get one that eats the dishwasher soap, so he starts burping bubbles through the whole movie. And then as the one I mentioned earlier, where he eats a bunch of chili beans and becomes the gassy one. Roger Ebert actually liked this movie. He said that it was basically a low-budget Die Hard with aliens.
Oh, I love it. See, I'm trying to think that Roger Ebert actually really likes like bad movies at heart, and he just pretends like all of like the Academy Award winning ones. Like, no, like, yeah, I suppose this is a thumbs up, but seriously, hear me out. Critters fucking 3.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
he just, after the movie ended, he just went and ate a bunch of beans, farted around his house, and just put bleach in his hair to get that white streak going.
Exactly. But he had a little bubble machine going because he didn't want to eat the dishwasher soap.
Of course.
Understandable. He does have a job to maintain. He can't be
Exactly.
going
Bubble pipe.
around farting
Bubble-
and
oh,
blowing bubbles.
Sorry, bubble pipe. Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
You know,
Yes, now it's classy too.
right.
Exactly.
He still looks professional, but he blows bubbles at the same time.
Now, the puppetry effects are still very solid for this movie.
Mhm.
It's very seldom do you see like the wires or the hands or anything like that. They did a very good job. It's still to this day did a great job of just basically using the puppets and everything else. And it was fun. It's still a fun movie. If you just turn your brain off and sit down and watch it, the movie's fun. It really is. I still enjoy it, not just because I'm a big fan, but just because it's fun.
Yeah.
And so, Joe, thank you for singing "Power of the Night."
Been waiting to do that literally since we did the Firefly episode. Been wanting to do that so bad. But I totally
Literally.
literally since the Firefly episode. Chris Traeger. All right. So, but yeah, no, I agree. Like, Critters is definitely like one of those like kind of staple examples of like 80s practical effects that like no matter kind of like how great CGI looks, I mean, it just does not have the same effect for our generation as like solid puppetry and solid like makeup effects. So,
And I love practical effects. Chris and I have talked about it several times in our podcast. The more practical effects, the better. And it's its own art form too, especially in the older films that are black and white because they didn't have color. So how are you going to show illumination in the film when you don't have color? Or how are you going to, depict that as blood if there is no color? I mean, it is an art form in itself, especially in the 80s with some of the movies that we grew up watching. The effects are still as good as they were when we watched them. Unlike some of these newer movies that, for example, I love The Mummy a lot. We did
Hmm.
one of our episodes on The Mummy, but some of the effects did not age well at all. Not at all.
And that's something with with critters is the fact that they take this absurd idea of these furball aliens that can roll into a tiny little ball and chase after you while shooting little venomous uh, needles at you,
Yeah.
basically,
Hmm.
like a porcupine almost, and make it seem so realistic at the same time, and really think, oh, this is actually kind of terrifying. It's a little furball with teeth. This is going to be great. I think that was due to the special effects team, the Kyoto brothers,
Okay. I was
which
actually wondering who did this because I didn't know like the amount of like reach that like the Jim Henson's shop and like Stan Winston had through this era, and this like it looks like just as good as like the stuff that you're used to seeing, and like these are the guys who like they made Yoda. Stan Winston did the effects for like Alien and Predator. And all of these massive shot and all these massive movies and Critters for being a much lower budget than a lot of these I think does a great job.
it does, it does. Well, the Kyoto brothers, they did the other film that I was going to mention was Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yes. Oh, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
That was going to be my other pick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why
You know,
Leslie's shaking her head. But yeah,
I okay. I
go
gotta
ahead.
do I gotta do the sound clip that we never actually have a sound clip for, which is me saying, "Surprise, motherfucker." And I gotta mention Arachnophobia from 1980 because this
Oh
was the
wow.
one that I was really torn on whether or not to make this my pick because
Hmm.
Poltergeist is so iconic.
Right.
It's if there's a
I
Mount Rushmore of horror movies, it's up there. But Arachnophobia, when you started talking about practical effects
mhm.
and making things look terrifying, like I'm not going to go through all of Arachnophobia,
Hmm.
but for those that remember Mythbusters and Jamie Heineman created the animatronic spider that crawls up Jeff Daniels in the climax of the movie. And as a child, I wanted to die inside watching that scene.
That's why I never watched it because down here we have big spiders.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, I
god.
remember when it coming out, I'm like,
Mm-mm.
not gonna do it. Mm-mm.
Yeah, see, now the reason why that movie was campy, it wasn't just because of some of the spider happenings that but I got to say that for one, it had some of the worst dummies ever made when the couple Irv and Blair get killed. But one of the worst lines I've ever heard in a horror slash thriller movie was when the doctor, the town doctor, whose character's name is Sam Metcalf, gets bit by a spider, and his wife goes, "What happened?" And he goes, "Felt like a damn cougar." And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
god, I remember that. Yeah.
what does that even mean? It felt like a cougar.
What? They're ripping your flesh? You think
In my time as a young man, I got bit on the foot by a cougar, and it felt very much like this. I don't know where that came from, but god damn it, I love that
Oh,
movie. I
it
had
was.
honorable mention time. I had to throw it
Mhm.
out there.
And I think Leslie and I should do honorable mentions here in a second too with our secondary picks. But just another like I feel like I have to say this with a testament to like practical effects versus like CGI. If you ever want like a good comparison over which one really holds up well, watch The Thing from the 80s and then watch
Yes.
The Thing from 2011,
No.
which is the prequel to the 80s movie. And you
Mm.
will see that in the 2011 movie, acting is fine, casting is fine, cinematography great, everything looks fine. But when you see the creature for the first time doing anything, and then anything after that in the 1980s with practical effects, when you see it be like, the dog that has the tentacles start shooting out of it, and all the dogs become one big weird dog thing, and then, like, this happens throughout the movie, and you compare that to the first time you see the creature doing anything in the 2011 movie, in the 80s, you're still hooked by it. You're like, holy fuck, this is crazy. This is nuts. Where are we going next? As soon as you see the creature show up in 2011, movie's over. It's not believable. It looks
Well,
awful. Like, nope, I can be done.
Fun fact about that movie, they actually shot it with all practical effects. Universal decided they didn't want to do the practical, and they went back and took out all the practical effects and used just CGI effects.
Poor
And the
choice.
thing was, Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gillis, when they showed up on the red carpet, they didn't know. They didn't know this
Oh
had
my
happened
God.
until they sat down and started to watch the movie, and they were like, "What just
Oh
happened?" I
God.
think they use CGI to kind of enhance some of the practical effects every so
Mhm.
often, but 90% of it, or let's say 85% of it, was all practical effects. And I think like toward the end of the movie where you get the shot inside the ship and you
Mhm.
get like this weird like Tetris thing that's happening as it
Yeah.
looks like a bunch of blocks are going on. Apparently there's supposed to be something completely different there, something like grotesque and everything else. Like, it was showing that this is how he starts and everything else.
Mhm.
And there's been a lot of petitions around on the internet to get this turned into, release the director's cut, release the I think they call it the Alec Gillis and Woodruff cut.
Mhm.
And Universal still hasn't done it yet. And Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff actually went. They got so mad about it, they did a Kickstarter and made their own movie called Harbinger Down.
Ah.
So it's like, you know what? Since you're gonna, take us off and everything else, we're gonna do our own movie. Sadly, Harbinger Down was not the greatest thing in the world.
Ah.
I was so rooting for the movie, and when I finally got to saw it, I'm like, yes. I watched it, I'm like,
No.
no,
Well, we tried.
yeah. It's
Ouch.
$1 million. Whoopsie. By
Dang.
accident.
Mhm.
Well, Chris and I both shared our honorable mentions. Leslie, Joe, do you have any others you'd like to bring to the table before we conclude this evening?
My honorable mention is Cabin in the Woods.
Mm.
Mhm.
I like that one because of all of the villains you ever think of is in that movie. And to me, the greatest part is when the guy gets killed by the mermaid.
the Merman.
Or merman,
Merman.
excuse me.
Merman.
He's never seen a merman.
Merman.
Out of all of these
Merman.
years, he's never seen a merman. And all of a sudden he goes, oh, it figures.
Then it goes, oh, come on.
He's
It,
killed by the merman.
I think the unicorn was the greatest.
Yeah.
Ca-
Yeah,
Freak-
it's a great movie.
Freaking unicorn killing people, stabbing them in the head.
Oh
Oh,
my
that was
gosh. Could you imagine like being the survivor of that movie and then like think of like after the movie's done and their funerals for everyone who died and like death by unicorn. That's how he wanted to go out.
Yeah.
dang.
You know, the most ironic thing is that the fellow that survived is the one that was high the whole time because
Yes.
the gas didn't have any effect on him because the pot was protecting him from, yeah, I guess his olfactory,
Mhm.
whatever, however that the smoke was supposed to affect them. And he's just like, dude, what's going on? He stayed high the whole time, and yet he was a survivor.
I think one of the greatest lines in the movie is when Chris Hemsworth was like, "No, I think we should split up." And and the high guy, "Really?"
Are you sure?
It's- every horror movie trope ever put into one movie.
That's right.
Oh yeah, that reminds me of like the Geico commercial. Where
Yeah, oh,
like
yeah,
they do
yeah.
every trope and then like the murderer is eventually like just right behind them and he's like, are
Ta-
you guys serious?
He takes his mask off and he's just shaking his head like, really? I have to kill these people. No, yeah. Wasn't gonna, now I'm gonna.
Yep, no, my
One of the greatest things from Cabin in the Woods is the old creepy man at the gas station calls the engineers and he's like, "Wait, am I on speakerphone?" Then he's like, "The lambs have come to slaughter." Wait, I'm still on speakerphone.
It's a creepy voice.
Love it.
Great movie.
Oh, nice.
All right, Joe, what have you got left in the tank?
So my honorable mention is a movie that knows it's so ridiculous that the opening monologue that's about, I think, 2 minutes long is a man saying, sometimes a film comes along that's so ridiculous that it does it completely on purpose, and that maybe, just maybe, you should forget about life for a while and stop thinking of breaking down every single goddamn thing you see in film and just let the movie happen. And this is a movie where just after that happens, a lone tire rolls across the desert, stops, and then starts
Oh,
shaking when it sees a
no.
rabbit. And then suddenly the rabbit just explodes. This movie is called Rubber.
Of course you picked this one.
And that's
Robert the Tire.
that's all it is. It's a fucking tire that just rolls across the California desert, randomly bumps into whatever little character development's happening among like the human casts, and then just shakes and makes the person blow up.
Yes,
Yep,
Hmm.
that's
this
the
is a
movie.
real movie.
Like, the
How
tire
much
wins
money
in the
you
end.
made off of that?
And then
Unfortunately,
you get this weird like subplot of like the people watching this happen, and it's supposed to be the audience of the movie, I guess.
Yeah, because it's like they're like tourists, right? Like they're
Yeah.
going through the desert on some sort of tour, and they see these things happen, like, and they're supposed to be representing us and what we're thinking while we watch the movie.
You know, it reminds me, what was that tire company? Was it Goodyear that had problems years ago of
Oh,
just blowing up?
that was Firestone.
Firestone. Well,
Mhm.
this sounds like this could be a perfect insert for a Firestone commercial. Tire just rolling around and shaking and blowing
Ooh.
things.
So wait a minute. What are they trying to say here? You piss our tires off, and they will make you explode.
like
Yeah.
our tires will already kill you, but now they'll really kill you if you get them
Right?
pissed
Yeah.
off.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It's
They're
not the
not on your
tires blowing
car
up; it's you blowing up. Don't sue
Right?
us.
They're no longer on the cars. They're angry.
Wow.
One of the things I found funny about this movie was that the director said it was almost impossible to make a remote controlled tire because it was difficult to hide the mechanisms in it.
Hmm.
And I'm like going, wait. So it was practical? It's like, yeah, the tire was practical almost the entire movie. Like the CGI was all like based on heads exploding.
Yep.
So I
So
mean,
you had what, a big guy behind the scene like, let's roll it this direction.
Yeah.
That didn't have to
Bounce.
be it. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
Dale, throw the tire.
Okay.
Bounce
This
and
way.
bounce and then roll.
I need you to bounce the tire.
Well, no, making it was difficult, but they still managed to pull it off. So,
Oh, good.
but
Which I wonder if you watch through like the credits of this movie, if there is a tire wrangler, and that's the specific title, tire
Your
wranglers.
job. Catch a tire. Before it falls off the cliff.
well, what a hell of a way to wrap up some movies that hopefully folks have either not heard of and now they can go check out, or maybe they haven't seen in a very long time
Mhm.
and want to give it another viewing. But for tonight, we can't thank y'all enough, Chris and Leslie. It's been wonderful to have you back for really a non-music oriented discussion, but it's still wove back in, which I was really happy to kind of have come back up. But before we go, we would love to give you the floor, as we love to do for our guests. If you can tell us about what's going on with your show, anything kind of new that's going on, and we'll let you have it before we roll things up here.
Well, our last episode that we just released was our composer showcase and interview with two-time Academy Award nominated composer Marco Beltrami. That was kind of a big thing for our podcast, and we're really excited to do that. We have one more episode that we're going to be coming out with, and we might be taking a short break for a little bit because just kind of life's kind of getting in the way just a little bit. Yeah, our podcast is Measuring the Score. I'm a film composer. Leslie's a musician, and we talk about film scores and the films they are for, and try to offer any kind of some sort of ranking, I guess you could say, right, Leslie?
Well, it's kind of like a scoring matrix. So we listen to the movie and we put it through what we consider as our test, and we 3 criteria we filter it through to see if it works for the film. We listen to the score independently, and then we listen to the score with the movie, and then we'll see if it works with the movie, and then we'll apply our 3 criteria to see if it works or not. Now, granted, Chris and I are married, so some of our opinions are not the same.
No, we always agree. What are you talking about?
What? You take those rose-colored glasses off, buddy.
Oh man. And you can find our podcast pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts at. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook is just type in Measuring the Score podcast. Same with Instagram and Twitter. We are at Measure the Score. You can also send us an email, measuringthescore@gmail.com. So that's pretty much it.
Nice. And hey, and if you're looking through their catalog, you'll notice that we joined for a bonus episode on their previous season for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles as we navigated what was kind of a unique scenario for a film score / soundtrack. So that was a fun time. And once again, yeah, it's great to have y'all back.
One thing we do like to do here with our guests when we have them on is we like to give you the opportunity to do the sign off for us with our typical way of signing off that we used to do in post. So for those, if you don't know it, it's okay. So yeah, go ahead, Chris and Leslie, take it away.
For Digital Dissection, keep on dissecting. Is that right?
Keep on.
Keep on.
It is. I like it. It works.